In the wake of this, people have lost jobs. And should that stand? Do they have a legitimate complaint? Should they be reinstated in their jobs now that the pandemic, at least the worst of it, has passed? Umar Sheikh is a Victoria lawyer. He's a former CEO with the BC Nurses Union and is going to court on behalf of government workers, transit workers, and others who have lost their jobs. And that was because of the pandemic, and they're seeking a right to express themselves now. Can they go against the mandate and be reinstated? Let's zoom them in. And joining us now in the Victoria Rumble Room for the first time is Umar Sheikh. And Omar, very nice to have you on our program today.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Now, right off the top, we've just seen Operation Rolling Thunder storming through Ottawa. We heard again from anti-vaxxers. We heard from bikers and truckers shouting at the media, mocking police, screaming for Justin Trudeau to be removed. And, they are against the mandates universally. I think there are different things that they're upset about, but everyone seems to be against the mandates out of that crowd. And some of them have indeed lost their jobs. So what do you make of these types of protests?
I think we need to understand what's going on here as Canadians. I think that there's been a lot of absolutism that occurs where we're calling them anti-vaxxers or categorizing them as the other. These are our fellow Canadians who have experienced some significant harm over this pandemic, and we need to be compassionate and recognize that harm. In the case of the folks that I represent, they've lost their jobs. They've been on unpaid leave without access to any unemployment insurance. They've had no money, and when they do get fired, they get fired based on misconduct. So they don't get EI then either, and plus they have a termination for cause on their record. This is a disproportionate response. These people have been financially bankrupt, they've been hurt, they've been punished, they continue to be punished every single day that they're out without income, and they're stigmatized. And so, yeah, a lot of them are going to go out there, they're going to protest, they're going to say words like, unfairness, and that is true. It is, a lot of these mandates have come down unfairly. The mandates don't apply, for example, to the physicians. If you don't apply the same mandate to the physicians in the health sector, how are you going to apply them to the public servants that aren't in the health sector? That doesn't make any sense to us. And so there's lots of different ways this could have been handled. But what the NDP chose to do here was take a very heavy hand and decide that these people needed to be punished, and punished greatly for not obeying the mandate.
Omar, it's really fascinating to have someone with your perspective on the show. Thank you. I understand that you yourself are vaccinated, but you've taken on this file to go to court for people who've lost their jobs because they've refused to follow mandate protocols. Why did you personally decide to get involved with this?
Yeah, so I decided to get involved with this because I've got experience dealing with the vaccine mandate issue. I was formerly the CEO of the British Columbia Nurses Union. I was successful in dealing with the vaccine mandate that was put in place for nurses. That was taken out with a deal made by HEAVC and Bonnie Henry just before the pandemic was done. So that deal was made. They understood that those mandates didn't make sense, and it didn't make sense to punish and fire people then. That seems to have changed. Yes, I may have changed roles, but I still understand what the law was, what the law is, and what the appropriate response is, depending on the efficacy of what you're trying to push through. At the end of the day, there are three things that are important when we look at any type of charter issue or any type of bodily autonomy or medical privacy issue. We look at a proportional response. We wanted to make sure that it's proportional. We want to make sure that it's effective. What you're saying that you're doing is effective. And we want to make sure that it's equally applied to all. That's not happening here. And so there is a great injustice that's taking place for these people. We are at 2 doses. This is we are going to court in July, for example, for 11 public servants over 2 doses, not 3, not 4, not the next dose. And so this is non-compliance with what we all now say is an ineffective amount of vaccine to stop transmission regardless. And so if your objective was to stop transmission, you're not doing that with the policy you have. Therefore, your proportionality, your effectiveness is not there. You're then terminating for cause based on that, and you're harming these people considerably. That's disproportional according to me and according to what I see in the law. And you're not applying this to doctors. So the
all right, but okay, that's a bit apples and oranges. I
No,
mean,
no,
you've already
it's
stated that once, and I'm not a judge, neither is John, so we're not trying this. We're just trying to get the information out of it. And
Yeah.
a lot of people, and I'm sure, Omar, you would agree with this, were very upset when this pandemic began in the first place, and there was no vaccine, and people were feeling very vulnerable. And we saw all these reports out of places like China and Italy, where there were caskets going through the streets and people were dying en masse, and people were really upset. And I think people were joyous when the vaccinations occurred. And I can tell you for a fact that for myself, I'm triple vaccinated, and it gives me peace of mind. I know I can still get Omicron, but my chances of dying, I think, are very minimal. And I think a lot of us feel that way now. And so I think it's fair to say that most Canadians, and certainly in British Columbia, an overwhelming number have had their vaccinations, feel that was a good idea. And at least initially, we're not very pleased to see people, particularly in the healthcare field, not get vaccinated.
Yeah, but I think you're going off based on feeling. We were all collectively relieved. We were in a collective trauma that was taking place. That was a pandemic. At the time, I was the CEO of the Nurses Union, and I was on those calls that were happening every day with the ministry at the beginning of the pandemic, trying to understand what we were facing. And so we didn't know. And then, yes, we got a vaccine, and we were told this vaccine is safe and effective. And if you take this vaccine, we will get back to normal. That is what we were told. I bought into that. You seem to have bought into that, and so have many other Canadians. That is not what British Columbia ended up doing. That is not the reality of how this vaccine works. You said it yourself, you're triple vaccinated to protect yourself. I am not triple vaccinated. I am not getting triple vaccinated. I know that there are a number of British Columbians that are going to draw the line at 3, perhaps they're going to draw the line at 4. But if you're not producing the results that you say you're trying to produce, and yet you're firing people based on what you say you're trying to do, it doesn't make any sense.
Okay, so you have talked about the fact that you worked previously for the BC Nurses Union, so you are very familiar with that aspect of the union movement. My last question is really about how unions feel about this. I understand at Victoria City Hall, for example, the unions very clearly said they wanted people reinstated who'd been removed because they had refused to participate in the mandates. And Victoria City Hall has actually brought those people back. Do you see that as something that's going to be universal or common amongst unionized staff, at least, that the unions will back them in their return to work?
Yeah, I see a very troubling, and I'm going to say this in the most judicious way that I can. I see a very troubling relationship between the BCGEU and the NDP. And so there have been already terminations that have taken place of BCGEU government employees. That's already occurred. It's occurring now. There are hundreds of them impacted. I don't see them being reinstated or coming back. I don't see the BCGEU fighting for them or running campaigns to get these people back on some sort of pay or helping them in any way. And so there's some other unions that are involved in that. I don't see a massive union shift. If you look on the federal level, the NDP has tied itself to Prime Minister Trudeau, and they've been pretty clear that they're in line with whatever Trudeau's policies will be. The NDP over here is pretty aligned with the unions and the BCGEU. There was not very much pushback. I can tell you that the legislation that this was passed under required union consultation, so that's in black and white. And so any sense that the unions weren't consulted is nonsensical to me. So I don't know what they will do, but I do know that I'm going to sue them all.